Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, more gambling mess. Also, finger pointing in Montgomery. And let's talk about bathrooms.
On three. 1, 2, 3!
It's enough to make your head explode. Boom! All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and Josh Moon, columnist and investigative reporter at APR, and one of the finest guys I happen to know. Welcome.
Nice.
Hey, Josh.
I see y'all still aren't home.
No,
it kind of looks like we're in the jungle right now, but
we're in Milos, Greece.
On the island of Milos.
On the island of Milos, not to be confused with Milo's tea.
No.
Right.
Even though
No
they're
relation.
spelled the same without the apostrophe. And Milos has no connections to Milos. But this is the place where Venus de Milo was discovered in a farmer's field. He was plowing his field and found a famous statue there.
It's actually known as Aphrodite here.
It's Aphrodite here, but, you know,
Right.
they changed the name because it fit the French better. You know,
At the time, at the period of time they actually wanted it to be in, even though it wasn't. So.
Anyway, you know, Josh, you wrote a column this week that was spot on, but let's talk about what happened in Montgomery. What now two weekends ago, where there was that shooting in downtown Montgomery, and so many visitors there. Two individuals lost their lives. 12 were injured, and the first thing that happened was recrimination, finger pointing, and pointing out that Reed just wasn't doing a great job, and that they need to get control of that city, and that it is out of control. And I mean, you know, threatening to take over the police department, and to, you know, what's next? They're going to bring in the federal troops? No, because we're a red state. But, you know, no one mentioned the deeper problems, the systemic problems that have led to these outcomes. But you did, and you traced it all the way back further than Emory Fulmer, but showed that this problem at Montgomery has been there for decades and decades, and actually really generations.
Yeah, you know, I think everybody is pretty well acquainted at this point to Alabama's regressive tax structure and some of the laws that we've passed over the course of a number of years that, you know, discriminated against certain people, you know, whether that be black folks for a long time or whether that be poor folks in general. We've tended to do that. And Montgomery, I've always argued, is a really fine example of what happens when you do that for generations. And because for generations, they have shoved people into certain areas of the city, forgotten about them, essentially. You know, they had private schools for the wealthier kids to attend. They had magnet schools for the second tier folks to send their kids to, and you know, and so you know, this is how they sent them through schools, and the schools themselves in Montgomery were some of the worst funded schools in the state. We've all heard about this. We recently had a tax increase that you know, added a little bit more money to that school system. But, you know, I've watched them. You know, I've watched them put 40 kids in a classroom and then try to sort it out, and the kids have to share books and desks and all sorts of different stuff. And that's on the lighter side of things. In addition to that, you have all the other stuff that have gone away. And basically, this is what happens when you ignore for generations a whole population of kids. And those kids grow up looking for acceptance and love, and they're gonna seek it out. People are not just going to roll over in a gutter and die. They're going to figure out a way to survive. And some of the ways, if you don't agree with the way that they're figuring out to survive, then you better put an influence in there.
Well, they've also cut after-school programs. They've cut community centers. They've cut out things for these kids to do. Any teenager is going to find something to do. That's just the basic nature of a teenager.
And
you've got to give them something, middle school sports, whatever it is, to do in a more positive sense than just turning them loose in the streets.
And the other thing is, if you don't have hope, you turn to gangs, you turn to people that accept you, and you look for ways to make yourself feel better about who you are or try to get ahead. And too often these days, it comes with a gun in your hand. And
you look at these kids. I mean, once you reach adolescence, you're going to start searching for a path in life, and and we all see it. Good kids, they have the rebellion against their parents, and the parents talk about how they're at odds with their kids all the time. These are good parents. These are good folks that are trying their best to do things. So you know how difficult it is, even when you're an involved parent and you're trying your best to raise your kids and send them on the right pathway. Well, now remove that parent that's doing that, and that's what's happening in a lot of these homes in Montgomery and for a lot of these kids. And there's been no structure put in place. There's been no guardrails there along the sides to help steer them into a meaningful portion of life. And when that happens, folks who want to take advantage of folks come in and use them for means that none of us like.
Well, and also, going back to the community centers and taking the sports out of the middle schools, a lot of children that don't have a father at home, don't have a mentor of some sort, don't have a mother at home, could find mentors in these places to guide them, to help them, to advise them, and that's all been taken away.
And let's also not forget now, there's a lot of people who I think equate these problems with deadbeat parents or parents who are absent, and that is certainly an issue with absentee parents and stuff. But there are also, at this day and age, with our economy and the price of rent and the price of groceries and everything else, there are a lot of parents out there who are working 2 and 3 jobs, and that's the reason why they're not always present. They're not always around. They're trying to keep a roof over everybody's head and keep the lights turned on, and that that's also an issue. And so I suggested to Stephen Reed on our podcast, Alabama Politics This Week, shameless plug, that he should accept any offer of help that he could get. Turn this whole thing over to those folks. You know what? Kay Ivey, you got a better idea? Steve Marshall, you got a better idea? Come in here, man. We'll do anything you want to do, but give us the help that we need to straighten these kids out.
One of the things, and at the time, in 1965, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who later on became the senator from New York, wrote a report. And in 1965, it warned that if the United States did not do more to help black people get ahead, and this also applied to poor whites, that there were going to be generational problems because of lack of education, of the legacy of slavery, of segregation, and all these things would be compounded to destroy the black families. It would destroy the white family. We've seen this this is almost 50 years ago. The country was warned, and in many areas that warning has been ignored. And he said then, we're not worried about the middle class. We're worried about those people that are already struggling, and they will struggle for generations. And we've seen these generational struggles. But Josh, you brought it up. I guess just like Daniel Patrick Moynihan, maybe somebody will remember it and do something about it. We're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Your home is your most valuable asset. But what if someone tried to steal it from you? Property fraud is one of the fastest growing areas of fraud in the country today.
As a district attorney, I've seen firsthand the devastating effects of property fraud. That's why I'm proud to support the Montgomery County Probate Court's REACT program.
REACT is designed to protect your property and to give you peace of mind. By signing up, you'll receive an email notification if a document is filed against your property.
This program is a game changer. It has the potential to prevent fraud and protect countless homeowners throughout Montgomery County.
So don't wait. Sign up for REACT today and protect your home.
Protect your home with REACT. Sign up today.
Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. Well, some new news in the gambling world. It turns out that the Greene County Sheriff sort of misplaced $5 million. I mean, it's money that is supposed to come from charitable bingo. It went to him. It seems to have gone to a lot of people he knows, contractors, consultants, staff. $5 million. And this all goes back to the reason, another reason we need to regulate, tax and regulate gaming. You haven't had those problems in Macon County where you have people like the McGregor family running the business. You don't have these, certainly don't have these problems with the Porch Creek band of Indians down there. But this illegal gambling problem we have is one that we're going to have to face, and this sheriff, if he did in fact sort of lose $5 million to friends, family, and co-workers, I mean, it's just another problem.
A little aside on that, imagine if that $5 million were regulated and went to Montgomery for school programs and stuff like that. Would that make a bit of a difference?
Well, you know, all right. Let's give Sheriff Benson the benefit of the doubt. Let's say here that he's just not a very good bookkeeper, and that's the whole problem here. That everything is still in the up and up, because I still think we have a huge problem here, regardless of whether or not this was malfeasance or anything illegal or untoward. Okay, and so let's give the good sheriff the benefit of the doubt and say that it wasn't. But even still, we have a lot of this misspent money that they can't find, or they couldn't find documentation for, was done in 2017, 2018, 2019. So we're talking about 7 years ago at this point. I mean, we're talking 7 years before anybody even looked at the books to figure out whether or not the money had been spent. At the same time, let's take the Porch Creeks, for example. The Porch Creeks have an internal auditing system that the federal government has access to, that monitors stuff. They have to report daily any sort of large transactions. They have things that they have to do in terms of anti-money laundering that they have to report. In addition to that, they routinely are audited by the federal government, by the Indian Gaming Commission. And those folks come in and take a look at their books fully and go through everything and track the transactions. Over in Mississippi, where they have casinos, they have to do quarterly reports in addition to having an independent auditing station inside of each casino. So they have to, what the state commission there has access to. So they all have access to this. If you'll recall, I believe it was last year, we had this large point shaving scheme in college athletics that ensnared a bunch of people. This was a big story. They found out about this because a lot of the transactions that take place on the sports betting websites now are publicly available to folks. So you can see where these things are coming in, and the folks who monitor these sort of stuff through various computer programs took a look and said, hey, wait a minute, we got a large amount of money bet on this no-name guy to take a dive basically in the first quarter of the game. What the hell's going on here? Let's report this and let's investigate. Those are the sorts of things that we should be doing in this state if we were properly taxing and regulating this thing. But we treat gambling as though it's this mysterious sort of nonsense out there still, like it's only out in Vegas that the mob controls or something. In the meantime, every 10 seconds when I'm watching a football game on Saturday or Sunday, there's an ad for FanDuel or DraftKings or some other sports gaming website out there.
Yeah.
I mean, let's treat this like the business that it is. Let's regulate it. Let's make a little money from it.
We already have gambling. How many times do we have to say that? We already have gambling. We've had it for a long time. It's just not taxed and regulated. And we're only asking the legislature to vote on a bill to let the people decide.
And I think this goes to sort of our next thing, where the Alabama Athletics Commission worked with the Cherokee County Sheriff's Department to break up an illegal, basically sports combat between
bare knuckle boxing over there.
Bare knuckle boxing, straight out of Snatch in the movie.
Yeah.
Right.
But Josh, there was somebody looking at this and discovered this was going on and shut it down.
Yes.
Again, it goes back to proper regulation and proper oversight, which we don't have, but we should.
Yeah, no, you're right. And you're right. When you put these commissions in place, this was another thing that was relatively controversial back when we were putting it in place, the athletic commission. And now we've got it. They can regulate some stuff. We've been able to bring in some pretty good boxing matches. Back when we had Deontay Wilder as the heavyweight champion of the world, and
made a lot of money on that one.
Birmingham and around, and so now but those are sanctioned events. Those are things that happen. The stuff over in Cherokee County. My God, this is where my people are from, over in Center. They had the place called the Pit, which I can only imagine what this place looked like. They moved. Listen, they took the meth cooker out. They put the guys in the pit, and everybody went at it. But it was no, for real though.
Now don't forget, on Saturdays they bring in the dogs, and on Sunday they bring in the roosters.
Yeah. The rest of the week it's a barbecue pit. It's something. Here's the other thing about it. These folks violated the law, and they're going to pay a price for that. Okay, but I'm also relatively certain that they were just over there having fights, and it was something that they just decided. A couple of guys got together and decided to do this as a. So completely sounds like something some of my idiot friends would do. Look, let's just dig a pit and get in the pit and we can fight, and they were gambling on this. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that people were gambling. That's the only reason you hold sporting events anymore is to gamble on them. But you're right. You had a body there that came in. We certainly didn't have a gambling commission to come in and take over this thing and investigate it. And kudos to the athletic commission for coming in and shutting the thing down and working with the sheriff's office and getting the whole thing straightened out. But yes, you're right. This is the type of regulation we got to have.
We've got to have it. And the fact that Cherokee County had a place called the Pit, if that is surprising to anyone, then you've never spent much time in Cherokee County. And the fact, look, sometimes boxing can make you cringy, make it a little crazy. But most people like sports, whether it's boxing or hockey or even curling, and they want to bet on it. And you know what? We're going to have. We got sports betting in all over the United States
everywhere
now. I mean, that's happening, and that's
I
not
can do it
illegal.
on my phone every day. Every day. I can do it right now while we're doing this
Every
show.
day.
I can make a
But
bet.
Alabama lawmakers do not have the common sense to pass, regulate gaming so that we make some money on it. But we'll leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Alabama has a hands-free driving law, and that means you can't hold your mobile phone while making a call. Oh, and no writing messages, recording, or watching videos either. Plus, you can only use a single button or swipe of a finger to answer a call. So what's a driver to do? Alabama's hands-free driving law is in effect. Follow it.
Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. I want to talk about a very sensitive issue right here, and it's for the last 10, 12 years, the Alabama legislature has been very concerned
Obsessed.
about bathrooms. Who's using what bathroom and with whom? And it's really gotten sort of ridiculous, especially if you come to a country like Greece, where even in high-end restaurants, you're going to look for tabano. You're going to ask the waitress if you can speak Greek. You're going to, a little bit, you're going to say, puine tabano. And they're going to point you to somewhere that may have a WC, meaning water closet. You're going to walk in that door, and there may be a woman in there. There may be a man in there. There may be two men. There may be two women. And there are two stalls.
And one sink.
There's a communal sink where everybody can wash their hands and gather around waiting for one of the two stalls. Now, most of them do have a sign for a woman and a sign for a man. Many times it's just the standing or the sitting position to alert you which one you should go to.
Sometimes they're pink, sometimes they're blue.
Sometimes they're pink, sometimes they're blue.
Pink and blue.
But the point is that nobody is getting nervous about a man or a woman standing in an entrance to the bathroom with the door closed.
Now, I will explain that the stalls themselves have walls all the way ceiling to floor. It's not like you just go in a regular push door and you can see the feet of the person next to you. They do have walls.
Now, some of the places I've been in that may not be the highest end, but very nice restaurants, you don't get an option. You got one door, and you got a communal entrance, and you can wait around and see who comes out. But we are concerned about somebody, a transgender person, coming into the bathroom and doing unseemly things. And the Greeks don't seem to worry about those things, Josh.
Yeah, listen, we've talked about this a lot, about this bathroom situation, and I've always been confused by people's obsession with the bathroom. And I often wonder what the hell it's like at their house. Do they divide it up into men's and women's restrooms at their homes, and only men can go in this one and only women can go in that one? And if they ever cross, then God help us, the whole world ends. I don't understand what's going on. And in addition to that, while everybody's so worried about transgender people or a man pretending to be a woman going into the women's restroom, as far as I can tell, I've never heard of a story of somebody being attacked in a bathroom by a man who's pretending to be a woman. I tell you who I would be more concerned about going into the bathroom with anybody would be pastors. Given all the stories that we've seen lately of the pastors that are having problems with preying on children and young women. And I want to point that out. I want to say this because I want you to recognize the absurdity of this, okay? Because there's somebody right now going, well, that's unfair. That's a tiny percentage of pastors. Absolutely right. You're 100% right. And even that tiny percentage is so much more than you've ever heard about transgender people or gay people or sharing a common bathroom. All of that is way more than those folks that you're doing, that you've been scared to death and tricked into voting for people that don't have your best interest over that nonsense.
Well,
now, let me put it this way. I will make this real clear. If I got to go, and there are two women in line, and that door is closed on the women's side, and no men in there, I'm going in the men's side.
Well, you may be going to hell.
I'm probably going to hell, but if I got to go, I'm going to go. I don't care
if it's a public restroom and you're going to the men's side, you probably are going to hell. And the hell is that men's restroom that you're going into. I'd much
yes,
rather go
I
to the women's 'cause
understand
they're a
that
hell of a
part.
lot cleaner than us.
I have encountered this before. It's not my first time down
You
that
know,
road.
the crazy thing is that, again, a deeply conservative country, deeply religious country, the Greek Orthodox Church is very powerful here. Yet in 2017, they passed a law that you could change your gender legally, whether you had surgery, whether you had diagnosis, whether you had all this stuff, and they just went, poof, we don't care. We don't care what you call yourself. So this one guy brings up a bill, no kidding, to make it illegal for transgender women or men to use the opposite bathroom. One guy, he got so many death threats that nobody's ever heard of that bill again, because obviously the transgender people over here will take a high heel shoes to your head if you think about telling them where to go to the bathroom.
It just again is the absurdity of it, because that's exactly right. You know, what do you care? And that's always been my question. On all of this stuff, whether it's the bathroom issue, the transgender athlete issue, whatever, I always ask people, okay, listen, if it's a problem, can you point me in the direction of one? Can you point me in the direction of the transgender athlete in Alabama sports that's causing you this havoc, that's really got you so riled up? Where is this person that's doing this? And maybe we can investigate it. But as far as I know, the High School Athletic Association and other associations in this state have a method for dealing with these things. It's worked quite well for 20 or 30 or 40 years at this point, and nobody seems to have a problem. So why are we worried about this instead of worrying about being able to put food on the table?
That's right. And the whole thing about transgender came about because after gay marriage, they were looking for an issue. They were looking for, after abortion, they were looking for an issue that would rile up the base, and this was one of them. This is a manufactured crisis. This, again, is government, trying to find a problem, misidentifying the solution, and just causing havoc all the way around. But before we leave, I want to take a moment to remember Gerald Hetrick, a man who has been with the Voice of Alabama Politics from the very beginning. He each week painstakingly did the closed captioning for this show, and don't think that was an easy job. He is well remembered by all of us as a fine gentleman and somebody that we will always remember, and may he rest in peace.
And he also heard all of the stuff in between and never told anybody.
Well, and that's a good guy too. Anyway, you've been watching the Voice of Alabama Politics. You watch us because we watch them.